Hi, this is Jerry with Alpha Association Management, and today we are going to go over a video for invoices and how to navigate um, through the screens and approve, decline, message, all that stuff. So, as you know, if you log into your portal, this is your dashboard. And right here you will see invoices, and I set one up that is in board approval status. So you can access it right here with all invoices, or you can go over here to the left and click on the invoices over here. So let's just go into this. These screens are a lot of the same depending on where you're bouncing around, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of detail going in depth on it. This is more just to navigate the actual invoices. So right here you will see my items. This will show all the open invoices that need to get approved, or you at least need to look at and take action on. Then you have open invoices, which are any open invoices that are not paid. So we have one here in the status of send payment, which means we haven't sent the check out yet. And then we have this one that we're going to go through today, which is sitting at board approval, which, as you'll notice, 918, the invoice number, it's all the same. Then if you go to closed, this will show the history of everything. So if we go back here to my items, you have the attachment button, you have the little eyeball to view everything, and then you have your action, which is going to be your approve or decline. So if you just know by looking at a quick glance that this just needs to get approved, then you don't need to go in and look at any details. You can just go right here and hit approve and move on. However, most of the time you're probably going to want to go in and see what this is all about. So then you can click on this little eyeball, and that'll take you into the actual invoice. So one thing that will get overlooked sometimes is right here. You have the messages tab, the general ledger tab right here, and then the recent invoices. So you can bounce around in these and see all the details that are associated. Obviously your recent invoices, all your past invoices. Your general ledger, that's going to tell you all the pertinent information, where the account, what account it's coming out of. In this case, it's the operating account. It'll tell you your bank account. It tells you what GL it's actually hitting. So this is a water GL. And then your amount. And then obviously you have your approve and decline up here again. So let's go to the messages. This is where you're probably going to spend most of your time. So as you can see, I've kind of bounced around in this invoice a little bit. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, that's going to be the oldest thing done on the invoice. And then as you move up, it goes all the way to the most recent. So anytime we move it, you send a message, it tracks everything. So we can click down here on this little paper clip, and that's going to be the original invoice that was attached when the invoice came in and we set it up in the system. So then it kind of walks along and it tells you how it moved along. And so it goes through and looks for duplicates and does all kinds of fancy stuff. But now we're here to where it got moved to board invoice approver. So now it's time to review it and figure out if you're going to approve it or decline it. So in most cases, everything's going to get approved. Obviously, if it's something like an invoice got sent in for work that was just not approved by the board, then obviously that's a decline and you would decline the invoice. And then it will come back to our AP department and then we can look into it and figure out what's going on. Basically, any other reason you can come up with is not going to use this decline button. You're going to use the messages. So if you have questions about it, you want to ask the manager, you can send it right here to manager. And we can just say, can you tell me anything more about this invoice? And you can hit send message. That then gets updated, and here we go. Can you tell me anything more about this invoice? So now let's just say you just don't like this invoice. And so you decide you want to decline it. I just don't like this invoice. So now it's automatically going to go back to board declined invoice, which is going to come back to our AP department. And we will see that it was declined, and we'll see, all this history of what's going on. So obviously, if you're declining it because it was unapproved work or something along those lines, then that's what you want to put in the notes, because that's what we see to be able to go off of to see the history. So you update it. So once you updated that, if you go back into my items, obviously you're not going to see anything because you took action on that. However, it's also still an open item. So if you click on open, you're going to see it right here. So one thing to keep in mind as a invoice approver is if you have multiple people that have to approve the invoices and you hit decline, it's throwing it back to AP. Nobody else is going to see the invoice. It's basically dead in the water because one person declined it. It's getting kicked back. So it's going to pull it out of everybody else's open items that is an invoice approver. However, with that being said, like I was just showing you, open items shows you everything that is open. So even though it got declined, it's still technically open. It's just not showing up in anybody's my items. So it might be a good habit to always go into your open items for that reason. If it got declined and it was declined incorrectly, then it's gonna hide here in the open. So now you could go in here and view it. Again, go into the messages and you're going to see the whole history. And you can go back and read all the messages everybody had to say back and forth and get all the information that you need. So then if you need to comment on it again or somebody else wants to comment on it, you can. Being that this is a test environment, Generally, you would have a drop down option for manager and board, so you can send it to the board as well, and that would then notify everybody on the board that there's communication on it. If you only want to communicate with the manager, then obviously you would just choose manager, or you can do both. So I think that's the big takeaway from it is if you hit decline, it's still viewable. You just have to dig a little bit for it. So now if I go back, I've got to go on a different screen here for a second and move it back to board approval. Okay, so now if I go back in here, now I go back again, we're back to seeing one invoice, and now it's back in your My Items. So now you can go in and view it again. Make sure you're going into messages, and here we are. So we sent in, I just don't like this invoice, and that's why I declined it. So then I saw it, and then I moved it back. This item has been back to board approval so that it can be seen by everybody again. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Again, just general communication back and forth between board members and or managers. It's all done right here in the messaging screen. 99% of the time, you're just going to use that approve button. The one-off times that you do decline, just remember you're declining it because it's ultimately a decline, not because you have questions and you don't agree with something on it. That's still a question. You're not really challenging whether or not the invoice is legit. You're questioning questions around the invoice, whether you need more details on it for whatever the reason. So hitting that decline button again, it takes it out of the screen for everybody. So somebody just logging in and going to their dashboard is not going to see an invoice sitting right there. They would actually have to go into their invoices and then go to open and see it there. So if we go back, then we can just hit approve. And I approve. And now it's off your dashboard. The other invoice approvers, it would still show up because we need more than one approval in order to move it along. But the system knows that, so it still leaves that invoice in the other inboxes for invoice approvers. But again, declines, pull it out of everywhere and kind of hide it. You would have to go to that opens tab to see it again. So I know I kind of repeated myself quite a few times on that, but just trying to get that information across. Ultimately, hitting decline causes more work on our side when it's not really necessary. So please, please, please use the messages button to communicate back and forth, and try not to use that decline button unless it is an actual decline. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to call our office, reach out to your manager, reach out to myself, and we will be happy to assist getting you any clarification you need. Hope this helps. Have a great day.